Hello and welcome to P Guru's channel. I'm your host Sri Iyer. As you can see, I'm having a background or backdrop of Mumbai local, and that kind of gives you where our story is today. We're going to be talking about things that are happening in and around Mumbai, and this is going to be a very interesting conversation. And to talk more about this, let's welcome our guest today, Sri RVS Mani. Mr. Mani, namaskaram and welcome to P Guru's channel.
Namaskaram. I'm very honored. Thank you very much.
Sir, we have been seeing a lot of developments happening, and you've been on many networks, and you've also given an interview about what has been happening with this Bollywood Nexus. We had one program about that. Now, there is also other things at play, not just, the executive. We know the executive is iffy, and then the executive in turn orders the law and order to do things in a certain way, not do something in a certain way. We've established that also. But there are other arms of the democracy also which seem to be influenced, or perhaps, how should we say this thing? Looking at two similar instances and coming up with two divergent readings. What do you make of it, sir?
I'll tell you one thing. If you recollect, my first debut on the P Gurus,
yes,
started on a basis of a letter I had written to the President of India. About, if you recollect that, the first P Gurus, you raised this issue. You had seen my letter to the President of India, somehow which got leaked. Because something is ailing the judiciary as much as it is ailing the executive and the polity of this country. There is no doubt about it. We are living in a policy environment that is the essence of bureaucracy, that is the essence of democratic modern welfare state, that if you put the same input, the output should be same. If two people are making an application and there is a set of policy, that is the policy process which has to be gone through, the end result should be almost same on merits. But is it happening? That is the basic question. Any arm of the state, you take it. Now, I had discussed about one particular case. Why it is not happening, I'll come to that. Now, take the case of two judgments which have emanated the last 2 years. See, my first complaint was in the Bhima Koregaon case. The amount of the in absentia bail granted and all sorts of things happened. At that time, I flagged the President of India to kindly intervene. I thought maybe he is the only, because if I approach any court, they will slap a draconian contempt of court act, while Prashant Bhushan may walk out with ₹1 fine. But I will not be allowed to, because I don't belong to that class. While Rajdeep Sardesai's case or somebody else's case, Swara Bhaskar's case, your Attorney General has a very surprising opinion that it is not fit enough for a contempt. I don't know what do you mean by fit enough of a contempt. If there has been any transgression of the act, as simple as that, it is open and shut. I am still having full respect for all these institutions. The Attorney General is the law of officer of the country. And my professor in law college, Professor Govindarajan, used to tell me that, Mani, you should respect the institution, even if they dish out trash, as long as the institution is there. The reason for that is, now in the Bhima Koregaon case, on the issue of freedom of expression, speech and expression, an observation came that dissent is the safety wall in a democracy. Dissent is the safety valve of democracy is very clearly told. This was told in dissent is not allowed then the pressure cooker may burst. This was the observation of the Supreme Court in the Bhima Koregaon bail case. Now, in the Sudarshan TV case, it says painting. This is an important. This is an element of IMOF concerns. Here, free speech becomes hatred. You can't brand any member of the community, something like that. You can't brand, you alienate the good members too by divisive agenda. So when I speak on facts, so far all the people who have moved the Supreme Court against the Sudarshan TV channel or its own right, you have had a dialogue with him. My short point is, neither here nor there have the facts been repudiated. Has single dissenter in the case ever repudiated the facts which Sudarshan TV has shown it, or he's proposing to show? Of course, if it is proposing to show, have the facts been repudiated on merits? And I expect, whatever may be the arraignment before the Supreme Court, the consistency, if you have taken a stand, even in the Bhima Koregaon case also, he is talking of right to freedom of dissent as a safety wall, otherwise the pressure cooker may burst, but he has not repudiated the fact Rono Wilson issue was a conspiracy to assassinate the Prime Minister. Let me remind the listeners. It happened in 2018, the entire seizure happened. In that case, the aftermath of Rono Wilson's seizure of his personal computers only, everything came out, and it was a conspiracy to assassinate the Prime Minister of the country. And on such a very grave situation, without regard to the fact, if an institution of the another arm of the state, I agree it is a very important, it is a very objective, it is a very good institution. It's a very respectable institution. It has a very long legacy. But with total disregard to the facts, if you are stating that their freedom is their safety wall of democracy, otherwise the pressure cooker may burst. Whereas in this case, again, the facts have not been repudiated. A particular trend, a particular organization using partly the state funds and other funds which are known, coming from organizations which are known anti-India elements like Al Madina, Islamic Research Foundation, Zakat Foundations. These are, many of them have a very past of even funding to terrorists, and these people are funding the same programs for, if they are given additional coaching, fine. And number two is, any recruitment process has to assess the suitability of the candidate to the post, whether it is the job of a lower division clerk or the district collector or whatever it is. In a multilingual, multicultural environment, overemphasis on this one particular subject or one particular religion and entitle him to get qualified in the highest civil service of the country, which holds the potential of his holding the highest number one civil servant in a 35-year time span, could be disastrous for the country. It could be, and on that such particular case, when it was brought to be, it was not even repudiated. The very facts were never repudiated. Are we on the same page?
Yes, we are. I was going to ask you a question, but I was waiting for you to finish your thought. Please go ahead.
Now the same thing happens. See, again, I was talking of the consistency and the policy environment. I could take on your question also, and we will. So because my chain of thought just took a break, I kindly.
Yes. So what I wanted to, I'm just musing loud here. Promotions in the judiciary appear to be more seniority based and not appear to be on the quality of the judgments delivered by the individual. How much of that is a factor in the appointment, sir?
Let me put it this way. You have flagged an issue, quality, the judges' promotion from the sessions judge level to the high court level are seniority based. In spite of inefficient judges are not giving any path breaking. Some of the judgments, if you read them, it is long on words and short on substance at the lower court level. And you would require another legal advisor to interpret the judgment. And one of the best legal brains. Otherwise, it will take ages. So that is the level of judgments which are coming out. We have to appreciate that. Having said that, I have certain cases, because I was talking of a policy environment. Whether it is a judiciary or in the bar or it is in the executive. Let's make it very clear that after even after the new government came, I never got I'm supposed to be the best in the security establishment, internal security areas, but I was never posted there. By certain lobby because I was too forthright. So I don't grudge that any position. I have delivered. I will, and even out of service also, I have been doing everything in the interest of the nation. Having said that, the same policy environment, when I talking of, you're about suitability of the post. Now I have explained it on the P Guru channel on an earlier occasion also. For designation of a senior, while the High Court rules, Mumbai High Court senior rules stipulates 10 years of active service. But generally, senior designation happens only after 15 years, 20 years of active practice. We have even in the Supreme Court recently the very prominent lady of advocate Aishwarya Bhatti got her senior designation after 20 years of practice. And very intense practice, having had represented in very path-breaking judgment cases. Important path-breaking judgments. For a person of that standing also, it took almost 15 to 20 years. I'm giving a standing example. Similarly, if you go to any of the high courts, senior designation comes minimum with 17 to 18 years of active practice. But we have cases where a gentleman completes his law in the year 1982. Later on, goes for a Harvard degree for LLM, completes that and around 86, and whatever he did, then reportedly having done some foreign internship also, he could not have begun the normal practice before 87 or 88. And many people in the bar will agree with me, or rather corroborate, that in the first 2 years of the bar, you are learning the threads. In the sense, you may be a doctorate in law, but the filing procedure, where to stand, how to intervene, how the drafting has to be done, what are the formats, so many things, which are all professional, and matching it with the high court rules, regulations, so many things. So you learn the tricks and threads for the first 2-3 years. Anybody, even the most brilliant lawyers will do that. Only then he can be a very important case. And number two is from 91 to 98, how many path-breaking cases the said lawyer had represented is a matter of question. Nothing is available on the public domain. Maybe clients may be able to come forward and confirm. And still that lawyer was made a designated a senior in 1988.
That's how many years, sir?
10 years. Maximum 12 years, but 10 years must have been the active practice.
So that would have been 1998, right?
1990.
Okay.
And later, elevation from the bar to the bench in the year 2000 or 2000 or 2001. On those days, elevation to the bar never had any income from the practice criteria as per the income tax returns. But after a lot of things, I think Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad only introduced this condition that for elevation to the bar, to bench from the bar, the person should have at least 10 lakh income from practice for the preceding 3 years. And this is one condition. Although 10 lakh rupees per annum is also not a great amount.
I thought they charged that for one sitting.
Now, I'm just saying, a lawyer of eminence, eminent jurist is what it says, a lawyer of eminence or eminent jurist. And a man doesn't get eminence of jurisdiction, in jurisprudence in 12 years of practice. Law is a dynamic discipline and it grows and grows and grows. The genesis have to be very, very strong. I may talk big legal lexicons, but it has to be very, very deep rooted. And thereafter, he becomes elevated to the High Court judgeship. And now later on to the Chief Justice of Allahabad High Court and now Judge of the Supreme Court. So the basic question is, I'm not taking any names. These have all happened. They are all in public domain. I have got no rancor about anybody. No, I hold all the judicial persons. See, when the NJAC was brought in to correct these infirmities, it was again set aside by the judiciary. But there was one infirmity as it exists in the Contempt of Court Act. A very basic tenet of law is you cannot be a judge in your own cause. If you have any interest, pecuniary, vested, whatever type of interest, you can't sit on judgment. But National Judicial Accountability Committee, NJAC, the Supreme Court judgment sat on it, overlooking this. And nobody, even the government of the day, did not raise this objection. The Attorney General did not raise this objection. So that is the reason the consistency of policy, the policy environment which we are talking about, the input-output norms we are talking about is never the same. So discrimination is happening per se. Please.
Sir, I just want to let viewers know that the orientation of judges from their judgments can be left-leaning or right-leaning, and this happens in all countries, including the United States of America, which Bollywood is talking about the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, whereas they probably don't even know the names of all the chief justices that ever served on the Supreme Court of India, but they want to talk about RBG. Different reason, different place. But my point here is that you will have the political or ideological leanings of a certain judge, and you know it beforehand, before you appoint that person. Like, for example, the United States Supreme Court today is conservative because majority of the judges have a conservative mindset. And now the problem for the government is the same government blocked the Obama administration from appointing a judge upon the death of Justice Scalia. They blocked it. They couldn't get that person in. So when Trump came in, he appointed his own person of choice. Now the shoe is on the other foot. He wants to appoint the successor for RBG, and the Democrats are saying, heck, we are going to allow you to do that. You see where it is? The reality, the fact that the Supreme Court should have as many justices as possible, because in the United States, you are a Supreme Court judge for life. And the reason that is done is because that exempts the judge from being biased in any way, shape, or form, because they are employed until they are alive. So this is the reason why they made them for life. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is that whatever we might be finding in India today, there is precedence, there is also similarities in other countries also, sir. I just wanted to bring that out because important to know that judiciary also can be viewed this way or that way. So please continue.
The judiciary indeed can have a left or right tilt, because judiciary is not, they are not gods, they are not paragons of virtue. We select the judges from our own population, and if the population has got such right and left leaning people, judiciary which comes from that should have it in the same proportion. There is no question about it. It's a very natural evolution. But the question is, that is what I say, but consistency. I'm not talking about their leaning. They are entitled to their leaning. They are entitled to their views. But when during delivering their judgment, you are not a human being, you are a judge. You are causing the future. You are writing the future of something. You have to remember that. And when you do that, the consistency, what is the background, by overruling that, the consistency, what I am saying is, that is what is essence. We are still, the most of the judgments are rule of precedence. There is a lot of areas where codification may not be there, and that is one part of the story. Number two is, there is another very interesting thing about all these things. Around 60,000, 55 to 60,000 cases are pending in the Supreme Court. I mean, the oldest vintage may be of 1980s or 90s, I don't know. I have not checked it. But the question again is, are those litigants not entitled to as speedy justice as a few people who are able to muscle their way into the Supreme Court registry and get a relief, whatever may be the emergent situation? Whatever may be the emergent situation. Number two, how do they manage this? My basic concern is here, because we know, I've already explained, Al Madina is a terror organization, terror funding organization. IRF funds anti-India and terror thing. I'm talking about Commissioner of Police Pune's report of 2009, which is there in the Home Ministry, which was actually received in Internal Secretary, but it was transferred by the higher-ups to the National Integration and Communal Harmony Division. So to that extent, I am very much aware about the antecedents of this. Al Madina is a stated terror funding, whose name has come in the contributors of the Zakat Foundation. In one or two parliament questions, it has been stated that Al Madina is a terror funder. Not in NDA regime, in UPA regime, in my tenure. If that is the case, and they are able to walk away with the justice, the signs are omnivorous. I'm very, very disturbed about it, that they could walk away into the Supreme Court registry, get a petition filed on priority. I'm not concerned about who enters the civil service. Although I can back up with records that we have a militant called Ganai, who is living in Lahore, who has escaped illegally from Kashmir, and some people of his own clan were appointed in the Ministry of Home Affairs as Additional Secretary and IAS officer. It's a matter of record. We have certain officer during the 2611 who was introduced into the delegation, and he batted for extending these talks, and after that 2611 happened. This also is a matter of record. We have certain officers from that group who wanted to alienate 123 properties by giving them, which the government of British India government had acquired in 1912 to 1915. I have records of that. But they wanted to give it back to Delhi Waqf Board, which could have had very serious consequences. These are all matters of record in my knowledge. There may be many others. So that is the reason it is extremely important Uh, the issue being taken up by our friend Sudarshan TV is extremely important, and the way the stay was obtained is not a good sign. I don't know why. How did they how did they go to the registry and get the access on a matter on which the Supreme Court had earlier already decided? This is even more disturbing. So the registry of Supreme Court had come into a lot of questions during previous time also. We give them all benefit of doubt. They are good, honest officers, most of them. But are there anything which can be, because judges simply deliver on what is placed before them. So the entire thing also needs a lot of introspection. Contempt of Court Act also needs introspection. Appointment of judicial staff or the appointments in the Supreme Court administrative staff has simply revisit the policy. I don't say that you sack all of them. All of them are good people, experience. We have a wealth of experience there, but just revisit the entrance policy. Do a little bit of positive vetting. Honorable Prime Minister has already begun the initiative of civil service reforms. Envelop the judicial, not the presiding officers of benches, the administrative staff of the judicial institution also. You envelop this mandate to include them also. Envelop this mandate to include the members of the parliament, staff of this parliament, not the members of parliament, the staff of the parliament, so that we have a very robust system, fail-safe system. See, judiciary may enjoy, they will be ultimately enjoy the power of appointing. The Chief Justice of India shall be the competent authority for appointment. But in the context of civil service reforms, I would rather suggest that without touching the tentacles, simply when the reform is happening, ask the committee to go into them, the the appointment of judicial staff in the high courts, lower courts, and the legislative assemblies and the Parliament of India. But this is very important. What I have to say, I have already said.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mani. And viewers, some of you may have read the story called Panch Parameshwar by Munshi Premchand. And if you have, please put it down on our comment section for this video, because this was written probably 100+ years ago, and it has a big message for all of us today. Thank you very much, Mr. Mani, and namaskaram. We'll be back soon with more interesting information and news.
Thank you.